Hello, everyone. Welcome to the XRPL zone. My name is Ajit Kulkarni. I'm a product manager at Ripple, focusing on interoperability. So that includes sidechains, XLS38D, the EVM sidechain, and the DID protocol. I'm very happy to have James here. Thanks a lot for being here. Let me give you a quick update on the special announcement. Today, there is a press release that went out today that Ripple is working with Axelar to build a connectivity between the XRP ledger and the Axelar network. So what this enables is for the XRP ledger to be connected to 55 plus other blockchains through the Axelar network. And the Axelar, this makes it very easy for developers to build cross-chain apps. And that's a lot what we'll be talking about here today. So yeah, thanks a lot for being here. So the first question, maybe tell us a bit about yourself, about Axelar and this integration.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm James Friel, Director of Business Development at Interop Labs. We're a technology company that develops interoperability software. We're the initial developers of the Axelar network. I've been with the company now for 2 years and lead all of our integration roadmap, so blockchain connectivity, and have been the point person working with you and your team very closely on this. So we're very excited to announce it today.
Great, thanks. Could you tell us about how can this make developers build even much better apps, and like cross-chain apps is what we hear a lot about. So how can the Axelar network help make developers be more productive and make the apps better?
Yeah, I think the last session really set the scene for this, obviously, with David talking about interoperability and no single chain, even XRPL, being able to serve all of the needs of different applications and different user bases. So it really takes infrastructure like Axelar's that's able to pass information or messages, execute function calls across different chains. And so when we think about developers that are actually building on XRPL, Axelar will enable the ability for them to execute these calls, be it data or function calls, on smart contracts that exist on the rest of our network. So right now, Axelar is connected to 55 plus chains. We work in a hub and spoke model, so there's one-to-end connectivity. So based on the integration work that we're doing now, as we continue to scale the network, there's no additional infrastructure that we need to be building together in order for those applications on XRPL to be able to be connected to liquidity and users on those other chains. And there's some really interesting use cases for how this will progress the DeFi ecosystem as well as the real-world assets.
That's great. Yeah, nice segue. Could you maybe talk a bit more about how this helps with the DeFi and the RWA ecosystem?
So traditionally, bridging has meant just token transfers, in which case they are locked on a bridge on the source chain, and then wrapped versions are minted on a destination chain. And this has security risks as well as it creates other issues with fragmentation on the destination chain. And so what Axelar enables through something we could talk about, general message passing, is the ability to use native burn and mint. So we can burn that asset over on the source side and mint a native version of it on the destination side. And so a use case that you can imagine is that somebody on XRPL wants to be able to use the liquidity that they have over on Ethereum in order for them to access a loan or create access to a stablecoin, a US Treasury that's been issued on XRPL. And instead of actually having to move the liquidity and their assets over from Ethereum, instead we can just send a contract call to Ethereum that sends a message back. It's telling us that James owns those assets. They've been locked in a smart contract in order for you then to be issued a loan on the destination. And so the ability to create these more simplified one-click user experiences are what we need to really create more complex DeFi applications and onboard many more users to the space.
Yeah, so I started researching into this about a year ago, and one of the things that caught my attention about Axelar as compared to a lot of these other technologies was the general message passing, where you can call any smart contract function on any other EVM or Cosmos chain from the XRPL, which I thought was pretty cool. So yeah, maybe you could talk a little bit more about GMP.
Yeah. So again, the distinction between there are many bridges that can only transfer tokens themselves as opposed to sending arbitrary messages back and forth. So we break it down into two different function calls. You can imagine a data call. So people have written about the idea that a privacy-preserving chain could contain your credit information. They could pass that information in a private capacity to XRPL, only revealing the necessary information of the band of your credit score in order for a DeFi application to be able to issue you a very personalized and specific loan. XRPL may not be the best place for the storing of that credit information. It may be another chain that has different KYC, different setup that is particular for that use case. And in this case, on XRPL, you'd be able to initiate a function call that passes a call over to a smart contract on that destination chain and sends back data that allows that app lending protocol to be able to issue you this very personalized loan. So that's like a data call, right? No token was actually transferred over the bridge. Then you can imagine executing an actual function that could be called again from XRPL. So this may be somebody wants to be able to start with USDC that they have on chain A. They want to be able to swap that for a second token. They want to be able to stake that token over on chain B. All of that then to result in on chain A, again, they're issued some type of stable coin, some type of like RWA asset, right? So you can imagine the complexity that can start to be built when a user can click once and we can abstract away from them a number of function calls and swaps that may take place on other destinations in order for them to get access to maximum amount of liquidity, minimizing slippage, and providing them with the best user experience.
Okay, great. That sounds exciting. Thanks for explaining that. So when it comes to cross-chain interoperability solutions, bridges as well, the fundamental concern that always comes up is security. Like, how is your mechanism secure? How are you guaranteeing that double spend doesn't happen? What if hackers or attackers attack the bridging technology itself? So maybe you could talk about how XLR ensures security of cross-chain transactions.
Yeah, and a perfect segue to take a step back and explain beyond just the enablement of general message passing what differentiates Axelar. And Axelar is controlled by a completely decentralized validator set. We're a blockchain that is connecting other blockchains using a delegated proof of stake AXL token to secure our chain. And right now we have a validator set of 75. Anybody can spin up a validator, acquire top 75 AXL holdings to be a part of the voting body. And this is by far the most decentralized message passing provider that exists at the moment in the industry. And so when we look at the hacks that have plagued this specific subsector to date, the very large majority of them have come from an issue with a very centralized multisig. Keys being held by the founders of that company, they become compromised, and that ends up with a run of almost a couple $1 billion in the last 4 or 5 years over the bridging space. It's not possible with Axelar. Axelar is secured by 75 reputable third-party validators, and 2/3 of those would need to be compromised in order for the bridge in any capacity. And so we haven't seen anything close to that number of third-party nodes be compromised to date. And so our connection specifically will be secured by 32 validators that will secure the gateway contract, which is a smart contract that exists on XRPL, and that's the communication channel with the Axelar network. The validators secure that smart contract, pass messages to the Axelar network, which then are distributed through this hub and spoke model that I mentioned earlier.
Great, thank you. Could you talk about now the project specifically, and what are we looking for in terms of milestones and timelines, etc.?
Yeah, I think there are two really interesting audiences that we both address, and it'll be a complementary relationship in that regard. You look at the DeFi ecosystem and what you guys are trying to accomplish with the EVM sidechain and the relationship between that and XRPL, the amount of depth and liquidity that Ripple has the capability to bring on, and what that'll enable for DeFi users and existing Web3 natives. And then you also look at institutional use cases and what this will enable for the distribution of real-world assets. So our goal is to make XRPL one of the primary hubs for issuing and trading real-world assets, starting with stable coins and moving into tokenized treasuries as well. And so I think that you guys really have the reputation that's needed in order to bring on some of these TradFi institutions into the space. And then Axelar can complementary be the distribution channel that allows users and liquidity that exist on all these other ecosystems to have access to those assets.
Great, thank you. So in terms of the project timeline, we are planning to have, you're right now testing the connection on a DevNet, and we're planning to have a mainnet launch later this year. Finally, for developers out here, what can they do? How can they get started with Axelar?
So all the development is happening open source. So there is an open source GitHub repo that every developer could go take a look at today, the development of the gateway contract there. But really where I see the contributions coming from developers in this room and outside this room are, once the connection is there, building some of these applications, building some of the ancillary infrastructure that actually allows end users to take advantage of the infrastructure that we're building together. So some of those DeFi use cases that I was talking about, and many other that I'm not thinking about today, our team might not be thinking about, we're hoping to get the developers in our ecosystems and outside of there to realize this is a really great opportunity for them to build a differentiated protocol. And I think overall, that's really what's needed for the space.
Great, that's all we had. Thanks a lot for your time, James. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.